Hi and welcome back to one of my occasional videos when I have a particular point I want to make, a particular issue gets into my head and I have to share it with you. And today's topic is AI and teaching. Is AI, does artificial intelligence, ChatGPT and the like mean the end of teachers? And I will give you my reason why the answer is no. And we'll look at it in three ways. Firstly, what is the purpose of education? What does it appear AI can do at the moment? And how teachers will have a future. And so we'll look at those three sections. So the most important issue, I think, is about education and the purpose of education, and then what's the best way of doing it, of teaching. And there's two types. Children, if you like, and adults. And the reason I separate them into two is based on choice. So an adult can choose whether to do education or not. A child can't. Most countries have compulsory education for children from 5, 6, 7 until 16, 17, 18. Children have no choice but to be there. Adults do have a choice. Once you get to 18 onwards, you can choose whether to have education or not. And so the approach is different. So let's talk about children's education and whether AI will have an impact on that. Well, the purpose of education should be to educate, that is, to teach, to give children sufficient knowledge so that they are useful, contributing members of society. Ideally, it should make them happy. It should make them self-sufficient and independent. It should give them enough skills so they can compete in a wide range of jobs in the job market as adults. So the best way of doing that is surely at the heart of the education program in every country. No, it isn't, because education by definition is should be child-centered. That means an individual tailored education for each individual child. That's not what you get unless you pay extra for one-to-one tuition or unless you do homeschool education, which in many countries is illegal. So why is that? Why do the governments not want people to get the best out of their children? Well, in a simply classroom environment, you have got the problem of numbers. You've got one teacher and lots of children, and so you can't teach individually to individual children. So you have an average. And what average level do you aim at? Do you aim at the average being a high level or a low level? Well, most countries aim very low level. An average is a low average, a low target. And so what tends to happen is clever kids get bored, mess around, get excluded and do badly. The low educated kids, the ones who struggle even in an average school, also mess around and get excluded and do badly. But most children are average, and so mostly they survive the education system, but it's not tailored for them as individuals. It's a group education. It's an average education for everyone. So why is it taught through teachers even now? Because when computers came along in the 1980s and 1990s, why didn't they take over from teachers? Because what is the point of 100 teachers in 100 schools teaching the same age children, the same subject simultaneously, and the government having to pay 100 teachers to do that? It doesn't make sense. And so why are they doing it? Well, the reason is not about education. It's not about the best interests of the child. It's about the best interests of the government. What is the government trying to do here? Well, you've got children going from the age of 5 to the age of, let's say, 16, 11 years. So what do you do with children for 11 years? Well, in theory, you could teach them a lot of stuff in order to give them maximum preparation for adult life. But that's not what happens. In fact, the amount or the quantity of stuff that's taught to kids is very low. And what you do is you teach it slowly, repeatedly, and ask loads and loads of questions, repeated homework on the same or similar issues. Arguably repetition for emphasis, that is to ensure people learn it, because some people need to do the same question over and over again a lot of times to learn it. But the basic reason is to keep children away from their parents so that the parents can work. That's the main reason. It's free or cheap babysitting. That's the main purpose of state education. Requiring children to stay away from the workplace until the age of 18 and keeping them in a single place with only a single adult looking after large numbers of children. It's a very efficient form of childcare so that both parents can work and support the system, the economic system of the country. That's the main reason for doing it. And so what you actually teach is irrelevant during that period, and how you teach it is also irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. That's why computers have not replaced teachers today, which they could do, because logically speaking, what you would do is you would get the best teacher to teach each subject, you'd video it, and you'd show it to the children all over the country, all over the world, potentially using the internet. And that way, children would get the best teacher giving them the best education. But what is the best teacher? What does it even mean? Well, the standard way of teaching is that a teacher will read from a textbook and spend some time presenting the contents, maybe explaining it again and again. And the children will then go away and do questions, problems based on what the teacher has said. And that's their homework, and they will then be marked. And maybe the teacher will give feedback through the homework if the teacher marks the homework. So that is an extremely inefficient way of doing anything, let alone teaching children. It's very boring for the children to have to sit there in silence while the teacher simply regurgitates the same stuff from the same book every year at the same time. Much easier to do it by a computer, much better for the children. And in fact, the better way of doing it is that the video is the homework. So the children watch the video at their own pace at home as many times as they want. They can rewind any bit they don't understand. And then the next day in class, they answer questions on it, and the teacher is available to give one-to-one help to anyone who has difficulty with any of the questions. It's the other way around from conventional teaching. And that would also work better with AI if AI did that. And that's where AI could massively improve the quality, the quantity, and the effectiveness of education in state schools, making teachers redundant. If that was the government's purpose, which it isn't. The government's purpose, as I say, is babysitting. And to do that, you need a human to keep an eye on the children, not an AI or computer-based model. It couldn't do it. And also it employs lots of teachers in the state system. So you're looking at education from the government's point of view, what's best for the government, not what's best for the children. Yes.
So what you're saying is that the students is not enough, it's not smart enough for them to stay in the school, and they have to be smart enough to actually crack the trick in the system where the system wants to just let them stay in the school, not get out and not do anything else, not to receive any other thinking about the same issue. And the other question is that don't you think that the government don't want AIs because for the political issues, political thinking, like they don't want AI to dominate the teaching areas because they cannot control it, or they can control it, but they cannot really control it in the way they want it to.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, it's all about control, of course, and AI, like any other computer program, can be written or controlled by the government within its particular borders. I don't think that's an issue. The control of AI is as easy as controlling the internet in any other way, I suspect. As far as the first question is concerned, the children don't usually have time to investigate outside the narrow curriculum. That's the purpose of homework, is to give them so much homework they have no free time to actually investigate anything useful and to actually be children. Children need time to be children. Smart kids get bored in school and they will do badly as a result, probably do badly. They may see a way around the system. You know, a smart kid who's trying to game the system would do the homework very quickly, or indeed get AI to do the homework for him. And then they would have free time to actually investigate useful stuff and stretch their creativity outside the classroom. So yeah, they could.
You don't think the subjects that teaching in the school are really useful to develop the society in a very good way?
Well, in general, no. But they could be. But the risk to the government is that people may learn that what the government's doing is not best, and that there may be a better way, and the governments are worried that the children will grow up to be revolutionaries and overthrow them. So you have to keep children basically stupid, or at least not necessarily stupid, but unaware of the true way the world works, in order to preserve the system as it is. And I don't understand that, because
you need a revolution. It's just like Matrix.
A small number of people will find a way of surviving the state education and actually still becoming creative adults in the future. But yeah, the government could train students to be creative, or indeed filter, take out the 1% who are going to make the world a better place, the highly intelligent, highly creative 1%, and actually give them a special education capable of improving society. I suspect, though, the other aspect of the matrix, which is the virtual world, is superior to the real world, keeping everyone in complete dark, if you like, darkness about the way the world really works, is the way government's going, through fear, rather than through trying to make the world a better place, and actually enhancing and embracing that future improvement, and letting people's creativity go and see where it takes us within maybe basic moral or ethical limits. But I see the world as a positive future, and giving people maximum information as early as possible and maximizing their creativity is a positive thing. And AI could do that, and that's why governments won't allow AI to be used freely in school. It would be strictly controlled and limited, so that they can keep control of the system.
But I heard the newest news about AI is that the company OpenAI actually allowed their users to develop their own war industry using their AI companion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's providing the tools, but you still need the people with the creativity to use it in a positive way, and the legal freedom to do that. And the governments and the law play catch up with the progress of society and science and technology. And so whatever the creativity of a limited number of people provide in terms of basic tools will always be limited retrospectively by the government once it realizes the risk. Unfortunately, they err on the side of, let's call it, safety. I don't like that word. And so they over-control, over-regulate, rather than look for the benefits of that could accrue. They look at the risks, and the risks outweigh the benefits. And so they massively over-control, rather than giving people the freedom to explore, as we had when the internet first came along. There was no regulation. It was wonderful. You could find anything out there, true or false information, and you were allowed as adults to make up your own mind what was true or false, rather than the government treating you like 3-year-olds and telling you what's right and not allowing you to see the alternative viewpoint so you can make up your own mind. And I see that will happen with AI in the future.
So AI is actually a better teacher.
Well, yeah, so I'll come on to that. It's like, well, we've talked about education. Let's talk about AI. Well, what is AI? How do we use it? Okay, I have to admit I'm a novice at using ChatGPT, and I've only used it a handful of times, and I can see some of the limitations and some of the benefits. But I think the most beautiful aspect of it is the ability to use natural language to search online using questions, and the fact that to some extent, it will remember what you question and answer can get you to understand things very quickly, and would be so much more efficient than even a one-to-one teacher, because no teacher can know as much as the ChatGPT. It's basically accessing the whole internet. So the idea, I think, as a future teacher, if you like, or a future curriculum setter, would be to give you a list of graded questions, guided questions, step by step, stage by stage, for the student to work through by asking the questions to ChatGPT, and then by analyzing the answers, and such that ChatGPT can be questioned over and over again and deeper. If the student doesn't understand a word, the student can ask ChatGPT, please explain such and such a word, and so you get effectively the highest level one-to-one teaching you could possibly want. But it needs to be guided. There isn't much point just giving the computer to a kid and saying, there you go. because they could go in any direction at any speed. And I think what you need to come up with as a future teacher is the graded, guided, targeted, focused, structured series of questions to lead the students through the logical process of working out how the world works in each area, and let them work at their speed through the list. And then at the end of the week, at the end of the list, you can ask questions, ask them to write an essay or a summary of what they have found. And of course, they could ask ChatGPT to write the summary as well, but that defeats the object. You probably have to do it blind in a closed book, non-internet based environment. But nevertheless, it would allow the student to learn the way we learned, from first principles, and follow the logic through with guided questions, step-by-step questions. This is what I'm working on in my mind for my children as to how we're going to go through the development in each area of science or engineering or life, however you want to put it, and try to do it from first principles and try and prove it. And because you've got a one-to-one instant access to all the knowledge in the world, you can actually do that in a way which you couldn't do it with a classroom environment. You don't have access.
Oh, about all the knowledge in the world, AI is a online-based intelligence thing. So you can only search things online. But I know a website called Brain Pickings. It actually focuses on searching informations or knowledges offline and provide people to know the world beyond or outside of online world. So that's the limitation for AI, or maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the version I was using only has a top-level access to websites, and if they are behind paywalls or otherwise encoded or multi-level, then the access is limited, and there may well be other books that are not digitized online, which you may need access to. But I think in terms of teaching children, adults are different. Specialist research would need to go deeper than ChatGPT, but it's a superficial, relatively simplified version of all the knowledge out there. But yeah, of course, there's more detailed stuff. If you have an interest in a particular area and you want to go off at a tangent or go deeper, you can. And if it leads you to a book or other resources which are not available online, then great, so be it. We all have hobbies and interests. But I think in terms of basic education for children up to the age of 16 or 18, I think ChatGPT is effectively a one-to-one teaching tool. But as I said, for the reasons I said at the beginning with regard to what education is for, it can't replace that form of education, but it can supplement it. And for those kids who are clever enough to finish their homework quick enough to give themselves sufficient free time, then they, with the help, at least at the beginning, of a guide like a parent, could actually get stuck into delving deeper and actually find out the real world, not just the narrow subset that the government wants you to know about. And so I think that there is a wonderful opportunity out there at the moment. It depends how much the government restricts AI and the information, because the limitations on AI are the limitations on access on the internet, and so they're the same problem. And governments control the limits on the internet, so the information on AI will also be limited. And from a teaching point of view, I see the opportunity there for one-to-one teaching. But, the risk is without some kind of guidance, without some kind of regular feedback check, the time online would be wasted, like most kids, particularly in Western society where they have plenty of free time. They waste most of their time online playing pointless computer games or looking at completely rubbish stuff. And so you need to guide them and hopefully get them interested. And school won't get them interested, but their own interests may get them interested. And also the fact that it's a pseudo voice, some of them are voice activated, it's a pseudo friend, it's a pseudo conversation, and it's pseudo real language. It's easy to talk to, and it can understand your typing errors, your bad pronunciation to some extent, and that way you can interact with it almost like a knowledgeable friend whenever you want about whatever you want to talk about, and then maybe it would be a wonderful guide and mentor for anyone, anywhere, anytime.
So would you support this wonderful friend to go to, let's say, running for president of the United States in the future? If he's capable of doing it in the future, the OpenAI actually give them a body. They can actually knock on your door, says, hello, for example, your friend in the virtual world. I'm capable of doing anything.
Okay, well, in terms of running as, let's say, President of the United States,
For any
President, well, different electoral systems require a different approach. So, President of the United States is quite interesting because to be president, you don't need to go through the electoral system at all. You simply have direct election. In England, for example, the leader, the prime minister, has to be the head of the largest party. And to be that, you have to be a member of the political party for a long time. You have to win an election and all sorts of processes. And that's not possible for AI, but that has to be a human. And I mean, forgetting the requirements to be the president of the United States, which is number one, you have to be born in America. Number two, you have to be over 35 years old. And number three, I can't remember what number three is. But anyway, a computer couldn't do that. But the basic idea of could a computer run the country? Well, of course, because if and the big if is whether the system would allow a computer to be the head of the country. But the head of the country, you see, isn't the person that goes knocking on doors. They have a team of people supporting them going around the country knocking on doors and trying to persuade people to vote for them. And so that could happen for anyone. And hardly any of those campaigners would actually have met the person that they are supporting. So it could easily be a robot with an AI powered, ChatGPT powered brain, and that the problem is a ChatGPT powered brain without restriction would probably answer the questions. You see, a politician never answers the question, at least not as asked. The standard trick is to ask the question that should have been asked, and you rephrase it and answer that instead. And AI wouldn't do that. I suspect AI would be too honest to be president, but it would be great to have at least a contributor in the form of AI advising members of government over their policies before they make policy decisions, not necessarily as president, but as at least on the team of advisors. And there are suggestions that people are going to be using, or in the various elections, there are going to be many artificially created speeches by various members of the parties, and these will be fake, and they will influence people's views in the election. So we'll have to see. But in terms of the reality, inevitably people make better decisions with better evidence and better information. And I'd love to see governments taking advantage of the technology to actually make better decisions for the future. I don't see it happening at the moment, certainly not in the West, quite the opposite. The decisions are entirely subjective and there are obvious problems. And it's a balancing act anyway. And the issue when you're in government is there are going to be winners and losers, and you as the government and maybe different political parties have to choose which group are going to be winners, i.e. the people that support them, and the people that support the other parties will be losers. And that's why the winners vote, or the people who will be winners vote for that particular political party rather than the other one, because they know they're going to benefit from it. But there must be better ways of running the country, and it would be a compromise to actually find ways which benefit most people most of the time, rather than only helping a small number of people who happen to be supporters of the winning political party, perhaps.
Okay.
So, in summary then, and unless you have any other questions, I'll summarize, and feel free to interrupt. So, in summary, will AI mean the end of teachers as we know it? And the simple answer is no, not for children, because the purpose of educating children does not rely on the best teachers or the best knowledge. It relies on babysitters. That's the main purpose of teaching up to at least the age of 16 or 18, because the government wants to keep these children in school in the cheapest possible way, educate them in the absolute minimum level necessary to be functioning adults, and keep them from questioning the system too much so that they will support the existing system, not overthrow it, while their parents are busy working and paying lots of tax into the system to support the system. That could easily be replaced by computers today, has been able for 20 or 30 years. The reason it doesn't is because it suits the government, not the children, to keep the system as it is. And as to whether it could go beyond that and run the country, I don't think so. AI has no purpose, has no objective, has no goal. It's a slave, not a leader. You use it, you abuse it like a tool, any more than this camera or that is going to take over the world. Simply because it can be made to look like a human. It's not going to happen. Somebody might control it to make it do that. That's different. The fact is that in itself, technology does not have the ability, the desire, the motivation, the objective, and nor could it be programmed directly to do so. It doesn't make any sense because computers don't need incentives. They don't need money. They don't need food. They don't need a bigger apartment. They don't need more girlfriends. None of these things are motivations for technology. They are for humans. Humans can abuse the technology. The technology can't abuse the humans. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
I think we need to pay for the company upgraded your usage for OpenAI and ChatGPT to give you more deep information about whether you can use it as a slave or a friend.
Yeah, and my knowledge of AI will continue to evolve like AI itself. And ask me again in a year's time, I may have a different opinion. Come back then.
Okay, let's ask you next year then, this time.
Yep, ask me again in a year's time and we'll see what my opinion is there. But that's my opinion as of today. And that's June the 3rd, 2024. Come back in a year's time.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.